Okay. So, I have two things that I handed out here. One is a map, one is a big thick thing of text. I'm going to talk the map first, and then we'll get into this because this will take longer. The map here, I have just to show the area we talked about for the potential overlay, which was the commercial industrial district down towards 234 interchange, just between Old 15 and New 15. It does split property lines because the current district splits property lines at the northern edge. It is, according to my GS people, it's roughly 290 acres across the however many properties it crosses.
The overlay itself
Yeah.
is 290? Okay.
I mean, given it was that round.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you weren't talking about the entire
No.
commercial district. Okay.
No, just that area in the little red burgundy outline there.
Okay.
So that's the area we talked about. There.
Yes, it is.
That's what we did. So keep that in mind, that number in mind as we go through the next.
Okay.
So it just so happened. Hey, let me say, I'm going to apologize. This came out today because somehow I thought the meeting was next week, not today. So I was, if I'd known that, I would have gotten it out last week. So I apologize. It just so happens that last week on Thursday I was up at Camp Hill for our state planning chapter put on a workshop on data centers where they brought in a bunch of different people, including an attorney that works on that side, and then somebody from PP&L and somebody from the Susquehanna River Basin Commission there to talk about some of the aspects of it from all those various sides. And there's some interesting things that came out of that. And the one thing I'll start on the first page here. This highlighted in yellow there, that wouldn't be in the ordinance ordinarily. I put that on here to give you an outline of what's in it, so it's easier to follow.
Okay.
As we're going through it.
Okay.
The thing I would want to point out to start with is new uses pop up all the time.
Yep.
And recent times, it seems every new use that crops up, there's more and more stuff that comes up with it that we want to be added in. Is it, we like to say, all municipalities in the county have zoning. Okay, great. Now we got to figure out how to use it effectively. Well, this is okay, but is it effective? And is it because you're trying to control it, or is it because it's performative, because you're trying to make it look like you're accommodating without accommodating? Is it going too far? Things like agribusinesses many years ago that municipalities went way over in the late 90s, early 2000s, because went way overboard on setbacks, and led to the acre law, which knocked it back. Then cell towers came up, and they had these big, long ordinances of controlling all sorts of things with cell towers, and now they're there. Then warehouses come out, now data centers come out. These come out, and more stuff gets added to it. And is it effective? And is it in some cases illegal? So that's the context of all of this stuff here. There's perfectly valid reasons for some of this stuff, but that doesn't mean that it should be in there. And we'll get to cover some of that. A few things that broader picture to bring up here from the session last week. Within the state, there's websites out there you can see maps of where the different data center projects are being proposed around the state. If you look at that and then look at where the different utility service areas are, like that First Energy, PP&L. You'll see that the vast majority of them are in PPL's service area, and only a handful are in First Energy service. Or I'm going to focus on the eastern part of the state. There's some in the western,
There's a lot in the
part of the
western
state.
part. Yep.
But this person was specifically on the eastern part of the state. There's good, from the utility company perspective, there's a reason for that. PPL has capacity,
Yeah.
so they get lots of data centers.
Yep.
First Energy doesn't have capacity, so they get very, very few.
Yeah.
You know, so that's something to think about. We are in the First Energy area, so that is something to think about. That's the provider that doesn't necessarily have capacity. That's why you hear things like somebody comes to them, this comes down for power, and well, it's going to be a year, it's going to be 2 years, it's going to be 3 years, that sort of thing. That's a symptom of what again, it's coming from the utility side person. That's the symptom of why one area seems to be getting it more than other areas. Long way of saying it's not impossible, but it might not be highly likely from a power perspective. The other thing that they talked about was power sources. And again, we talked about the location of this overlay based on proximity to the natural gas line. One thing they said is that if one of these data center site does use natural gas, it's going to be, they call it cogeneration, where they're building a plant on site to use that gas. When that happens, it's going to, we're talking 8,000 plus acres, not a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So that might not be it's there, it could happen, it might not be highly likely to happen there. So that's another thing to think about.
Was there a reason why they're saying it takes like upwards of 1,000 acres with the cogeneration?
Because what they seem to be saying was because they're building an actual.
But another
Plant.
structure, or have to build it too.
It's multiple
I get it.
structures
It's
because of the heat
It's not
transfer
just, it's like
implication.
a substation plus the generator.
Yep,
It's like,
I get it.
I want to say not as big as the one down in Hunterstown, but
Right.
yeah.
It would
Yeah.
be substantially bigger than the one in Hunterstown doesn't do cogen.
So,
Okay.
that's where they're doing it on site. There's that. The other thing is there's a lot of the models out there that talk about, well, they should be bringing their own power. That's all well and good, but that's not necessarily something that municipalities can regulate. That's done at FERC. That's done at the federal level, or sometimes the state level. You can have it in there, but should municipalities be having ordinance standards in the ordinance that you can't enforce, that you're usurped by some higher level of government? Just something to think about. The other thing on the water side, because power and water are the two big things here. 20,000 gallons per day is the threshold for needing permits from the River Basin Commission for withdrawal, regardless of what the source is, whether it's coming from a public system or private or whatever. That 20,000 gallons a day is the threshold for permitting. The types of things they talked about were closed loop systems, dry cooling. The ones that, again, Susquehanna, they cover a lot of the areas that are seeing these.
Yep.
The ones that use those technologies, closed loop, dry cooling, those are the ones they've seen some that have actually come in under that amount per day in terms of usage. The issue with that is dry cooling doesn't like hot temperatures. So it's less effective in areas that have higher temperatures. Think of the quick Googling I did, it's like 80 degrees, it's like a threshold there. So if you're over 80 in humid weather, that's probably not great for dry cooling. Well, that kind of describes the summers around here. So, not saying it's impossible, but it's, one of the things they've seen suggested is perhaps a combination of the two, which just adds cost to their side.
Yeah.
So there are things out there, technologies out there that can reduce some of those things. And if you want to encourage them in the ordinance, that's fine. Will the industry follow them? We don't know.
And that would also have to add to the acreage as well.
Probably.
Most
likely, yeah.
System.
Yeah, probably, most likely, yeah. The other question that I don't think has been answered yet, and this is not something that is going to be answered here, it's going to be answered at the floor level, is there's a number of different types of data centers. Like I'll reference the one up in Middlesex Township because it's the closest. It's actually under construction right now. That's called hyperscale system. That one is, there's 18, well, it's down to the 60, there are 18 buildings there. 167 feet wide by 660 feet long. About 110,000 per. And then 18 of those, so there's almost 2 million square feet under roof on site when you account for all of the pads and impervious and all that sort of stuff. You're in the 4 to 5 million square feet of impervious surface. Now, that's also a 700-acre site. So it's, from a coverage percentage, it's 25%. It's not covering a huge portion of the property. But one of the things, I will give you some context in terms of what that looks like size-wise, so you have something to compare it to. Again, the ones mechanics up there in Middlesex, 167 by 660. According to the land development plan that we reviewed a couple years ago for the Hillendale site on Tapeworm Road, if you're familiar with that. I don't know if they've fully rebuilt that, because that's entire untouched. I don't know if they've fully implemented that plan, but that showed those buildings were 85 by 500, about 42,000. So one of those buildings, one building up in the Middlesex project would be two of those buildings wide, and then some. A better comparison is locally is, everybody familiar with the Utz expansion that Utz did down on their site down in Colorado Township. Yeah. According to the land development plan, phase one of that, now they have three phases. Phase one, phase two are built. Phase three has not been built yet that we know of. Phase one was 480 wide by 692 long. And phase two was 480 by 660. So one phase of that new warehouse down there is the equivalent of 3 of those data center buildings up in Cumberland Township. 18. 3 of them, like, side by side by side.
Yeah.
So the first 2 phases there, which is 649,000 square feet. That's the equivalent of one of the data center pods up there. That Middlesex Township, one in Cumberland County. There's 18 structures in 3 pods of 6 on site. And then there's like 4 pods, data center, big pod of substations and electrical equipment there. So that Utz warehouse addition, that's equivalent of 1, like a third of the project. And that is the biggest building under roof in the county. For some comparison here, so you can...
Utz is the biggest building.
That we've seen, yes. The previous one was, I didn't measure, I should have measured Clark's.
Yeah.
There, Clark's was the biggest before Utz did its expansion. But so you just have some context there of what the dimensions we're talking about. So, and that site up there is 693 acres. There was another one that was since withdrawn in South Annville Township, Lebanon County. That's the area south of Annville, sort of east of Palmyra area. There's one down there that was 750,000 square feet of buildings. It was basically 550,000, a little bit bigger buildings. 199 acres. And then that one got withdrawn. So the reason I'm looking at that is because I was trying to make the dimensional standards we get into here match what some actual projects have been.
Yeah, but keep in mind, there's over 3,000 already built data centers in this country. Another 2,000 are proposed.
Right.
There are a lot that are significantly smaller than the Middlesex.
Yep. Okay.
So I just wanted that to be clear. We shouldn't be using that. That's a big plane.
Right.
That shouldn't be our standard
Right.
going forward, especially because they're going to be shrinking generally anyway because of the things we're talking about.
As the technology gets better, they'll
And
probably
the
But the
public
fact that
being
there's no
against
land,
it.
there's no parcels that big, there's not gonna be anything they can find to use.
Well, there are in other states.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, that's putting some context out there and where some of this comes from. So in terms of the standards here, I have it broken down into 4 overall sections. Dimensional standards, site design standards, operation standards, and then required plans and studies. There. You know, as we get, dimensional standards are fairly common. Required plan studies are, again, fairly common in a lot of uses. The site design standards, again, a lot of uses have those. The operational standards with these things are where it's sometimes some of the stuff we're reading and some of the stuff we're hearing, it's getting into the, what I would call being performative. You're trying to, how much can we put out there to make it look like we're controlling this, when a lot of it may or may not be doable. And one thing I'll point to here is and this came up a lot with solar. Talk about when these reach the end of their useful life, let's decommission them. Okay. Well, these essentially, they compare them to big warehouses, and that's really what they look like. Would you ask us to decommission their building when they're done using it?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Well,
right.
why would you do that here? The cost of these things being built, it's going to be astronomical. So is it actually, why would you? What is it about this use that would justify requiring something like that?
Well, one
Partly
reason,
because of the equipment inside.
well,
Do they walk away from it and then let you, or not, I don't say you,
Right.
the municipality, whomever,
Clean up.
deal with all the equipment inside?
same question on us.
Yeah.
But the one difference is, if there is a significant battery part of this, that changes everything. Some do and some don't. That's it, yeah, exactly. So that's one difference. You don't have that at us.
Right.
And you don't have that in a warehouse,
No.
usually. Well, there's even a few warehouses that have that, but not typically.
Would the battery be
Yeah.
buying power?
Yeah, and these solar, if they're built next to a solar field or wind farm, they have to have massive battery, even the warehouse. But it's also true. So, again, I don't want to engineer these, but in this discussion, but that is one reason, Andy, that you would deal with some decommission.
But if they have some of that stuff, right. If they don't have it,
If they don't have it, it's like us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll go. There's a bunch of definitions in there. We can come for those as we go through the stuff. I'd like to start on page 3 here with, and again, part of this is I wasn't 100% sure where to land this in the ordinance. Whether this an overlay. Again, we're doing 2 things at once here. One is updating the current one, and the second is amending this in.
Yep.
So I have this written as going into Part 11 use regulations, but it very well could be that if this advanced point where it's to be implemented, that your solicitor might want it to be its own section. So that we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The
It's a
standards
good, it's a
won't
good
change.
point. It's a good point.
The only thing that'll change is the format.
Yep.
So,
Andy, is that typical of an overlay district to have it separated?
yeah, like you have one in there. Your floodplain district is an overlay in there, and that's its own. That's its own section. So that's how the commons. Strabane has overlays, and they don't have them separately. So there's two ways you can do it. In my view, it comes down to a legal preference. What is your solicitor most comfortable with having it there? I really don't care. The only difference here is what outline format do I put it in. That's all. So it's in. I have it under 1178, which it would be the next number in your use standards. This model, we have the data centers and the battery storage side, which, those are, looks like a substation, but it's big buildings where they put the batteries there. Have those here. We have it listed as conditional use. That's how I wrote it. I think you have a lot of conditional uses in your ordinance now, so I figured that was the most common thing. It can be special exception of not necessarily recommend. The industry wants it to be by right. I can see both sides. One of the dangers that I would see in a lot of controversial uses with conditional uses is there's a lot of pressure on the bot, whether either conditional use or special exception, whether it's the supervisor or zoning hearing board.
Yeah.
There becomes a lot of pressure to make decisions based on emotion, not based on the facts presented.
Yeah.
And when municipalities make decisions like this based on emotion, that's when legal bills get very, very high. As I told another municipality that was, it's like, well, we turn them down based on health, safety, and welfare, and we won. I said, no, the zoning hearing board denied it. You didn't win because of your argument. You won because your opponent ran out of money. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So that's not an issue with these.
No.
So
Very few of these people are going to run out of money.
They never do.
So but it doesn't matter where you put it. Just keep in mind that
Money's not an issue with them.
right. By right means just gets down to zoning enforcement.
Yeah.
The hearing requires some public engagement and some sunlight on what's being done. Dimensional standards, they're pretty short. So the minimum lot size is 25 acres. I've seen higher, I've seen lower, I've seen as low as 10, I've seen as high as 50. Given the size of the acreage and some of the properties, the acreage, I thought 25 was a good number. There's properties that size in there. Some of the smaller ones. In the industry side, I've seen like 10 to 30 acres for some of the smaller ones there. So that it's in that vicinity.
Okay.
The floor area ratio, that's something that we use to try to control the size of buildings that are on site. And it's some math here. So 25 acre site, they can get basically 100,000 square foot building on there and change.
Yeah.
At 100 acres, they could get 400,000, 435. So the more they get, the more buildings they get. You're not going to have enough acreage in this year to hit the million plus.
No.
So, I mean, even if they convert the entire district, there'll be 1.3. But that would require demolishing number of houses and it would, could it be done? Yeah, I mean, they're starting to talk in figures that start in the trillions, not in billions, with these projects. So it's possible, but that's just a little thing to help force them to make some decisions. Building height, I put 35. That's what we tradition, that's what we've seen for what we use in other places for these. We've also seen 50 or 75 being common. I did note that there's, and I don't remember what section that is, 1015. I think it's a height section in your zoning ordinance. Whether there's some sort of potential, some sort of conflict with that in your industrial district, I wasn't 100% sure. But the building height there is a decision point that you'd have to think in terms of what do you want on these, and importantly, what do you want to count towards that height? Because a lot of these will have cooling equipment on the roof. Does it go up to the parapet? Does it go to the top of the cooling issue? What counts in terms of the height there? That's a decision point. That's highlighted as a decision point to think about. The next part, permitted coverage percentage.
But before we leave that, my experience is if the cooling towers or any of the cooling towers are on the roof, it counts. So it seemed to me that because they can take up, they can be very unsightly if they're big enough, and B, they can be substantial.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the chillers are elsewhere. I'm talking about the actual cooling tower. Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't know that 75 would be, but anywhere from 35 to 50, I think that would be reasonable for the use. But that's a decision point you're going to have to.
What was you puzzled me a little bit with your possible conflict that you were talking about? Do we? I haven't looked at that forever. What's our industrial number? Is that the high number? This came up one other time. We don't go ahead if it's quick, but it's something that we should be consistent with where we are, or if we've got a bad number somewhere else, we should fix that. And while we're being consistent.
Industrial district has a maximum height of 50. Section 1015 says no structure shall exceed 35 feet except as a conditional use.
Yeah.
The height of any building may exceed, and there's some conditions there. And it says the height regulations not apply to spires, belfries, cupolas, penthouse, or domes, chimneys, ventilators, skylights, water tanks, utility poles or towers, TV antennas, silos, necessary mechanical appurtenances, or agricultural and public safety related structures. So basically, there's two standards they conflict, and there's loopholes in there. So
there's a lot of loopholes in how that's written. Yeah. Okay. We'd want to tighten that up for the data.
So that's what.
All right.
That's separate from the height. What height you choose, but it's
noted. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So the permitted coverage percentage. This is why I referenced the two other projects here that I looked at, because what we've seen is these get dumped in a commercial or industrial district, and we'll follow those dimensional standards. Most industrial districts have like 50, 60, 70% impervious coverage is common in those sites. Mm-hmm. With these things, especially the bigger ones, you're getting to an amount of acreage that's an enormous amount of impervious surface. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even they don't come anywhere close to it. The one up in Middlesex, it's 5 million square feet of impervious as reported, and that's still only maybe between 25 and 30% of the site.
Because the site's so big.
Yeah. The site's so big.
Yeah.
It's enormous. So, either way. So what I did here was I set the different impervious coverage percentages based on the size of the project, and I'm probably getting the math wrong, because I think the one in Cumberland might have been like 16 or 17%, and the smaller one in Southampton might have been 25, something like that. Basically, by setting it this way, what I'm trying to do is to force, instead of giving them this huge amount, they can work with whatever they want. They have to be forced to scale the project to make some site design choices that actually impact what they're doing.
Right.
So they have to think about it as opposed to just, well, the coverage percentage is so high, we can do whatever we want, wherever we want.
Yeah.
And I don't think I don't think any development should get quite that. They should be forced to make some sort of design choices, especially ones that have impacts like this does.
Okay.
Setbacks. This is an area where I would compare this to what we saw with the agribusiness ones, where you got 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 foot setbacks from some things, and it became so big that the legislature stepped in and said, no, we're pulling that back. I get the why, but I think 1,000 foot setbacks, that's awfully big. The other thing is, given where it's setting here, if you put big setbacks, you're not going to be able to build anything.
Yeah.
And it defeats the purpose of doing it.
Yeah.
So, I basically have three parts here. 100 foot setbacks required from all property lines. Any property lines that adjoin a zoning district that permits residential development, existing residential properties, or properties containing sensitive receptors, which sensitive receptors are defined at the top of the page there. It's like schools, daycare, retirement communities, churches, playgrounds, parks, etc. That's 200 foot setback. Wait, hold on.
That's not too far. It's not close to the line.
That's what I was going to say. We're not near that, and that I can think of. So I went back and looked at this. A church, maybe. I think the closest church isn't that close.
No.
So A is the base 100. B is separated from any zoning district that allows those things. C.
But
The bottom line is I don't think you should be going over, given the size it's located, anything over 300 feet is going to be problematic.
Yeah, and we want to create a problem that we don't need to. Yeah.
And I say problematic in terms of your setbacks going to be so big that they're not going to be able to build anything. And it's going to open you up to say, well, you've excluded it because by design.
Yeah.
And that might be a feature, but it's not.
It's not defensive.
And it's a bad reason. That's the wrong hill to die on this thing.
And we get the site design buffer. It says no structures in buffer yards. We get what buffer yards are. So that's dimension standard. That's pretty standard in any district. We can argue over the maximum height, setbacks, even the impervious coverage percentage. And one thing there, and you'll see this when you get to the rest of the zoning ordinance. They have a maximum impervious coverage and minimum vegetative coverage. That's intentional. And what we've seen in other places is without the vegetative coverage, they'll make all the parking permeable paving and say, well, that's not. So now they get around your ordinance standards by fudging the numbers.
Okay.
So vegetative means if it's, you can do impervious paving from stormwater side, fine, but not from a coverage percentage.
Right.
Almost making it dual usage.
Yeah.
Making it.
When we say impervious, everything else, we mean that has to be
Only.
vegetation.
Yeah. Only.
Okay.
Okay, so now we get into the site design standards. Number one, access, arterial collector, that basically covers the road that this site this area accesses from. Buffer yards and screening. There's a lot in here. so I'm just gonna hit the high points.
And, yeah, go through, hit the high points, we gotta have a chance
Yeah.
to sit down and come back next month and then.
Okay, gotcha.
And on that point, you and I have had this discussion before, and I'm still not sure what the answer is, and maybe there isn't a clear answer. I want to be in a position where we can defend the fact that we've started an ordinance on this topic. And we're not going to be done. Yeah, we could take a year working. We're not. But if we want to get this really well done, it takes time.
Yeah.
And but we also don't want to be in a position where somebody comes along and exactly and gets going, and we're sitting here not being able to defend the fact that we're doing an ordinance. So, what's your assessment? Do we need to? And I'm asking kind of a legal question. It's not fair, but do we need to have a done ordinance? Do we need to have a mostly done ordinance? Do we need to have a started ordinance? I've heard different answers to this question.
Well, there's only two ways. One is something's completely adopted and in place.
Yep.
And two, there's something that's been advertised with an intent to adopt, it's called the pending ordinance doctrine. The first one, it's adopted, that's clear cut.
Yep.
The pending ordinance doctrine,
And
that one is less so. Not every attorney is willing to use it or defend it. And I believe there's case law that might be significantly pulling it back in the first place.
Okay.
So the short answer is the most effective way is to have something
We
adopted.
want to get it done.
So
Okay.
in the interest of time here, I'll go through the high points. Screening and buffering, this is one of the more important parts where it's basically trying to shield it from view.
Yep.
We have standards for ground mounted and rooftop mechanical equipment and energy generation stuff. There's on page 5. There's talks about buffering, about physical berms. Then under C, like 2, 3, 4, 5, talks about setbacks of how big that buffer area and landscaping area needs to be. 7 is highlighted there as to whether you want to allow them to use count existing vegetation or not. That's okay if it's in the right place. I guess that's somebody want it new. That's that position point there. Page 6, number 11, that talks about the amount that's required. Evergreen trees, canopy trees, ornamental trees, shrubs, there. Combination of the whole thing. Idea is that it's basically gets a wall that they can't, that hides the thing, except in the areas of where access drives go through.
Right.
12 says that it has to be at the outer edge of the buffer, so it's as far up towards neighboring properties as possible. And 13 talks about just the types of plant materials that should be used. On page 7, 15 talks about, the thing to think about is how long should they be required to maintain it in perpetuity, and for a couple of several of years. That's choice.
What are you saying on that?
I have it written in perpetuity, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way.
Okay.
That's a norm?
I don't know if there's really a norm. We've seen them all, but
Okay. Well, just the bigger percentages, what do you see?
usually there's a time limit.
Yeah.
But that's mostly based on different types of development that don't have the financial resources that this does. So I think like street trees and residential development. Yeah, that's another one. It's developer has to make sure it's living for a certain period of time, and then it gets turned over to the property.
Right.
As another township I worked with said, well, what if I don't want it? Well, after that time expires, you can do whatever you want. He's like, well, I'm cutting it down. Okay? That's your problem,
Yeah,
so.
we don't want that.
I guess if it could depend on the use. If you have a use where a visual element of it is a major concern, then you might want that to be longer.
Yeah.
Or more permanent, something to think about. Number three, that's, where the building goes and what it should look like. Attempt to put some sort of, doesn't look like a big, ugly building with a big ugly box.
Certain presidential
Some make it look like an office building. I mean, heck, in Roy's can make it say you have to look like a barn. Looks like the biggest barn in the world. Like, ball point two is where Boys Bears.
Yeah, make it look like a Lego block.
Boys Bears got. I kid you not. Boys Bears got approved this barn. It's a 60-foot tall barn with a steel superstructure, but it's a barn. As far as the zoning ordinance is
Not
concerned.
anymore. Yeah, not anymore.
Those things happen.
So,
Okay.
you can look through that, it's in there. Fencing, there's a decision point there in 4C about if you want a minimum height, if you want a maximum height, do you really care? That's the decision point. Typically write this, that barbed razor wire is not permitted. If you want to be permitted, that's fine. In either way, it's written so that the fence is behind the buffer yard, so you're gonna, from the ideas from the street, from neighboring properties, you'd see the trees and you wouldn't see anything behind them.
That's right.
That's the idea.
That's the idea.
So
They may want it for security.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right.
They should put in what they need for security. Yeah.
So if that's not something you care about, we can take that out. That doesn't matter.
Okay.
Lighting. The bottom line is requiring fully shielded, so the light's going down, it's not going out. I've written in there so like the light fixture itself, like here's the bottom of the light of the housing. The bottom of the fixture is the housing sticks out below the bulb.
Makes you can see it.
So you can't see it. So make sure it is going down. I also put in on D there, if they use LED lights that can't exceed 3,000 Kelvin, that's so it doesn't get up into the blue light.
The color.
But we should still deal with, because just because you can't see the light doesn't mean you can't see all the ways it reflects
Right.
and is lighting up the neighborhood.
Right.
So that's the bigger issue.
Yep.
You can shield any light these days.
Right.
The bigger issue is lighting up the neighborhood because of the reflections off the, whatever, even off the ground. Yeah, so,
Gets 15.
yeah,
Yeah, that might be a
Yeah,
problem
it'd be
too.
bad glare.
can be. So I want to think through that.
So we talked about glare. We have a foot candle amount at the adjacent property line.
Where is that?
B, 5B.
Okay,
The height, maximum height above finished grade. Pole mounted lighting is not permitted on roofs.
okay.
And then E is something we've kind of stolen from the warehousing side, which is basically for parking in vehicle areas, it has to be turned off. The facility's closed, things run 24 hours a day. It has to be dimmed after a certain period, by so much after a certain period of time.
Yeah, there's not going to be closed on these,
Yeah.
so.
So most large industrial sites that do this that's not something they're familiar with.
Yeah.
So they're running year all day.
Yeah.
Loading and parking. Honestly, the loading and parking on these things is the simplest thing.
It's minimal.
It's basically need one loading dock
Yep.
per building.
Yep.
And one parking space per employee. I've seen this, some allow for a couple spaces for visitors, but I say it's like a warehouse, like an Amazon warehouse. It's just with the Amazon warehouse you can see the stuff going in and out.
Yep.
With this you can't see it,
Yep, it's data.
and it has the traffic is
I'd imagine there's a lot of.
once it's built.
There are.
And don't get me wrong, it's a large building, large site. These things are huge construction sites.
Yeah, it's desolate.
But once they're built, from a tax revenue to traffic perspective, you're not going to find a
Better partner.
better rate
Yes,
ratio.
that's
anywhere.
exactly right, yeah.
But
That's why they've
not
been so attractive.
The whole
Yeah.
reason. So
Yeah.
the last page of it has the parking numbers on it there. And I put one parking space per employee and one shift, and one visitor space per building, and then one loading space per building. So it's not a whole lot there, because there's not as many employees as other places.
Has any revenue on these ever been talked about?
The only
Revenue, like for the, township or the county.
The tax
or something
base.
like that. Yeah.
So there was one municipality in Canada that I worked with that got an inquiry. It didn't progress beyond a, hey, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
They had a meeting with the supervisors and gave them some data. It was like around 750,000 square foot number, and they quoted a figure. So I took it to our tax office and said, hey, what's the industry standard here?
Mhm.
And they gave me a figure, and the most important thing that I can point out is that no matter what figure the industry gives, it's when your last assessment was that matters. In that case, they were talking like assessed value of $220 million, which was fine, except
When was it?
That's from 2010.
yeah,
Right.
If you have to take that back to 2010, you lose half the value.
Sure, yeah, it needs to be relative.
So, but they were talking something at their numbers, like $4 million to the school district, $1 million to the county, $500,000 to the township.
Yeah.
In the township's perspective, that would have tripled their property tax revenue.
Sure.
There. Now, the actual numbers
Less.
cut it in half.
Of course, yeah.
But as I told them, if you're strictly looking at it from the financial perspective, saying no feels like you're making the biggest mistake
It's
ever.
an easy keeper, yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
And really that's the big selling point that they
Sure,
come to it with. Because I would say it's trying to blind you with.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they just share the rest of it and tell you this is what you're gonna get, come on,
Well,
hold
they
it.
come in and make mine 0, I might be all right.
So
Make everybody feel like-
7 talks about census receptors. That's making it sure that they're a list of things that don't want to be impacted. Make sure it's as far away from this as possible. 8, 9, 10. Here, 8 is green building techniques, 9 is LEED certification, and 10 is environmental stuff. It's here in yellow and blue because I would classify this as if you really care, put it in there. If it doesn't matter, it's not going to harm anything. Take it out. Green building techniques. That's just talks about making sure you're being good neighbors with the site, type of thing. If you want it there, that's fine. LEED certification, it's fine if you want to put it in there. The number, what I found, those LEED standards, the B, C, and C are what the industry is following for the ones that do that.
Yeah.
The environmental features, again, this is some of the models here, like PNDS, we're doing that anyway. We require that. Woodlands, talks about, if you have this in a large wooded area, restricting how much they can cut down. That's common in a lot of solar ordinances. Basically, you can't clear cut a site to get more clear area to put solar panels up. So that's not a concern there. Riparian buffer areas, that's fine if you have riparians under this setting we have has anything like that in there, so that might not be relevant. It gets pretty intense there. It's going to really depend on what setting that means by putting it in, but I wanted to share that with you as something too that's out there in different models. So that's the quick way through
You've seen models on electromagnetic field measurements?
Not that. What I've seen mostly has been on the sound side,
Okay.
but not on that part. I wouldn't even begin to know where to look, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, I can look.
On page 12 starts operations.
Well, it depends on what they're doing, because the data generates a small electromagnetic field. It depends on what they're doing, because some of these are selling powers to the utility when they're not using it, which generates significant electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
You can
look.
I have not seen anything like that in any of the models that I've found.
Okay.
Let's see, operational standards, so on page 12. Number one, power supply and generation. They got to provide documentation from utilities that they conserve it, which is harder than you think. B is what I was talking about bringing your own power. That's all well and good to say that, but that's a decision, that's something that's approved at levels of government higher than a township.
Yep.
So it's good, but it's, it's in there to feel good, not because it actually accomplishes anything, because you have no real control
Yeah,
over
it's
it.
not
I get why other municipal ordinances have done it, because it sounds good.
Yeah.
But again, part of I could have not left this in here, but I want to bring up to make the point
Yep.
that there's some standards with these things that do sound good,
Yep.
but from the municipal perspective,
We're not the enforcers.
you're not
No, I know.
the enforcement
Yeah,
entity.
yeah.
So
Decision-making,
why
we're not
make
enforcing,
your
yeah.
life hassle for you guys?
Yeah. Well, good point.
The next part here, and I've seen some of this where the ordinance where they under D that goes on the bottom of page 12 and page 13, where they require solar energy generation on site. This is part and parcel of the backup and other things. In my mind, I see the positives of it, but on the same side, it's also mixing two uses that people tend to hate.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry.
I said you're getting a data center and a solar farm.
Yeah.
Pick one.
Yeah, I said it's nice. There's a lot of ideas. It doesn't mean it's appropriate. The ideas are appropriate everywhere.
Two for one free internet power.
It's still the virtue signal. It's de minimis.
Yeah, they'd never make enough power to even if needle would be involved.
No, I wouldn't die. That's what it is. Anyway, go ahead.
Number 2 on page 13, power lines and utility substations. This I pulled directly from another model. I basically says if they put a substation on site, it has to be screened. It has to be in the side or rear. It can't be in the front yard. They have if they're visible from an arterial or collector roadway. This one I put in there specifically because your site's between 15 and old 15.
15 to 15.
Basically everything needs to be screened there to maintain the same visual setting that we have now. Power lines have to be buried, under a certain amount have to be buried. Backup power. This is one that the part that generates the most complaints usually has to do with the backup power. And it's the generators that they have to run those. The gold standard I found for under 3A is that all generators have to meet the emissions. And I wrote this down in notes back in my desk and forgot it. So I forget which EPA generator standard it is there, but there's a specific standard that covers generators like this there, and Tier 4 is the strictest one. They have to go in annual testing. The next part C I found in here, and this sounds like a really good idea, but my question is, how complex is it to enforce from the municipality's perspective? That it only can be used when the primary source is not available. there's one model I found that capped the amount of maintenance testing per year that they can be run, so that they're not running constantly testing mode.
Okay.
That there's time limits to 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on when the testing, routine testing can be done. So that's not being done at night.
Okay.
They have to provide a report back to the township as to when that was done on the year. So there you have some records of when it's done, so that if at least complaining about, well, they're doing this all the time, you have got records that can point to say, well, this is what they're telling us. If you're telling me something different, then we need to go have a chat. And that they can't use the backup power for supplying to the grid or basically
peak shaving. Yeah, okay.
so, again, all generates that they're using it, that they have it, they're limited to how they use it, when they can test it, and that it's truly for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And in an effort to limit the amount of time that it's potentially causing problems with neighbors.
Yeah. Very difficult to enforce, but it would still be good to have it in here.
Number 4, sound and noise. This is one of the big things.
Yeah, that's right.
I have more details in the sound study here, which we'll get to, but one of the things that was pointed out to me by an attorney that's been working on these is a lot of the models, they have a hard decibel, and they're always focused on the dBAs, not the dBCs, and they're always focused on the hard number. Well, let's say it's 50 decibels or 60 decibels. Well, what if your current one is only, say, 40 in the ambient area? Now you're allowed to go way beyond what is there now. So what I've done here is, as part of the study, they have to do pre-existing conditions, find out what that is,
Okay.
and then they have to do an as-built afterwards. And based on, what the neighbor is, they're only allowed a certain amount. If it's a sensor receptor, if it's 50 now, it's going to be 50 afterwards. They can't exceed that.
Okay.
If it's an area, if it's something that's an open field or there's nothing in that direction, well, they can go up, say, 10% beyond what it is now. So it's tied to what the existing conditions are, and they have to either return it to that, or they can only exceed it by a little bit. And then talks about when it doesn't apply, like during times of power outage, or for emergency situations with things like that. But the idea is that, again, that the amount of sound they can get is tied to what the existing conditions are.
Now, how would that work with that being by 15? Because it's busier in sometimes a day than others. So would they be able to go in there at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, well, and rather they would probably want to be there during rush hour, so it's a higher.
It's their ambient, not the environment's ambient.
Part of what I have in the study part, which we'll get to, talks about when they have to measure that, and it's different times every day of the week, different times, so they can't.
They don't get to cheat with outside of their environment.
Right.
Yeah, they couldn't do their test during bike week.
Right.
One thing I'll say about that, Cody.
Yeah.
Are you up around 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning?
Depends.
Yeah.
You ever listen to 15?
Yeah, it's probably pretty like that all day long.
I live 15.
So you probably would know.
15 comes right through my farm.
Oh, I can hear it sometimes.
And I can hear them the whole way from Heidlersburg, the whole way past George Springs.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if they're out there testing, and let's say it's 80 because of how loud 15 is, then they can go 10 over that.
Yep.
That could be a pretty loud operation.
And it's all tractor trailers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's where taking a model and applying it strictly from somewhere else doesn't necessarily fit. You have to figure out there's something else like 15 we have to take into account. So, yeah. But the idea, again, that aside, the idea is that they can't exceed now. If they might have to build something in here specifically for 15.
Oh, yeah, because if they got us hear what it sounds like before the data center there, like Steve said, that's pretty loud right along 15.
And the hollow comes right down through.
Oh, hell yeah. And then 10 over that, I don't want it louder than 15.
We're moving on to the water.
Yeah. Okay, water. 5A, in my mind, this might be the most important requirement in these 20 pages. I'm saying they shall be designed to use a combination of dry coolers and closed loop water circulation systems, and that they can present, if they can come with something, technology that can beat that, they can present it there. But from what I heard from the power people and the water people, especially from the water people, was if you use closed loop and or dry cooling, you will have to be a really big site to get over that 20,000 threshold to get a SRPC permit. And in my mind, that's probably the direction that a lot of these should start. And there now, again, not every area can do that.
No.
I get that, but if I'd rather they prove why they can't than he's probably ask, can you please do this? But those are the two technologies we've heard so far that result in the least water usage. And since that's the big concern, that seemed to me like a good place to start. They can't use private wells if there's public water sources available, and that they have to do a water feasibility report. They have to get their state regional water permits, and they have to do a drought plan. And then there's rules there about untreated waste. They can't discharge untreated wastewater into stormwater systems or surface waters.
Just thinking about water usage. I'm sorry. Just thinking about the water usage. Right, we're right at Heidelberg and how much water the chicken houses use out there. So so obviously I think the reduced water usage.
Are they able to use their stormwater management to cool it? How are they handling all that? Are they storing it in the ground? Do they put big ponds in? What do they do with all the stormwater runoff? That's got to be a massive stormwater plan for them.
What about like now? So they had to put a water treatment plant in up there because they couldn't use the field. They couldn't put it in the fields anymore. So they had to the state made them put a water treatment plant in. And so what about all that?
It's a good question. I'm not.
Is that above does the state handle that?
Well, I mean, I guess depending on the size of the storm.
That's part of the NPDS permit.
Yeah, it's a normal permit for industrial.
Dams based on, volume and height of the structure.
I mean, we're talking about if they're using a closed loop system, then the amount of water they're using is.
We're just talking about water runoff.
Yeah, I'm talking
We're not talking about their cooling water. We're talking about the
Water runoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that'd be like any normal stormwater plant.
That's exactly right. But it's a lot. It's a lot.
What I was wondering was if
Water
water
usage.
cows putting tanks in,
Go ahead.
they use that to
No,
help.
good, thanks.
Water usage.
Because it's just.
What if it's next to residential? Okay? How many wells are they going to be allowed to drill?
Well, the way this is written, none.
So
Well, I don't think we'll get away with that, by the way. But the way this is written is
There's
none.
already several wells on that property.
But that's not the point.
Yeah,
How many can they drill?
How many can they
none.
drill?
This is none.
Well, right.
You want to stay on point here.
Yeah.
The way it's written is
Close
if
it.
there's a public source available, they have to go to that.
right.
They can't use private wells. That's well,
Will they use closely?
we're also requiring closed loop, which severely limits the amount of water that's used.
That's exactly right. I don't think.
And that's the part, you know, regardless of where the water comes, I don't want to minimize where the source of the water is a concern, but the bigger picture that I thought was it was important to control the amount regardless, and pick the technology. The technology we want them to recommend is the one that hits that. We can argue over what the source is
Yeah.
in a different section, but that was what I've heard from such as I've
I
heard.
understand what you did. Yep.
There, so.
Yep.
But we'll get to the water study, what they have to test in a few seconds. 6, emergency response plan coordinating with the emergency providers in the region. 7, community impact analysis. I'm not going to name names here, but I know of a model ordinance out there that requires the data center operator to basically do a real estate study and identify what the existing property values were for every neighboring property. And then if those properties sell and the value is less than what it was before, the developer has to pay. Pay the difference. And I can think of four U.S. Supreme Court cases that have said exactions are illegal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I know every one of them. Yeah.
you know, and it I don't want to minimize. I get the reason why you do it.
Yeah.
I truly do.
Yeah.
But
Too many of them.
with a lot of these community impact analysis, it's getting into the direction of the results are going to ask you to do something that you probably don't have the legal authority to require them to do.
Correct.
You know, I get that it will impact property values. I truly do. But unless they change the law, there's not much you can do. Now, if you want to have some of those things in there that they have to do it, it can't hurt. But it's it's not an actionable item for you.
Yeah, that's a waste of money.
You can look through what's in there and
Okay.
and see if there may be something there.
All right.
8, electronic waste and hazardous materials. This is one. It's only 2, but it's fairly important because the equipment in there it gets the stuff inside. Somebody brought that up. I don't know if it was Cody or somebody brought that up earlier about the electronic waste.
Yeah.
You know, that's the biggest thing. If we go down to Virginia, part of the reason why Virginia is swimming money for data centers is because they charge. It's not just the property tax. It's the personal property tax. So all the equipment inside those data centers, they pay tax on that.
Yep.
So that they are swimming in money from data centers down there because of that. To the point where they had to reduce that. Some counties had to reduce that personal property value rate because it was generating so much.
Overthrowing their budget.
So, but electronic waste of having a plan for how they're going to dispose of it that's a super important part of these because that stuff gets replaced every 3 to 5 years.
Sometimes sooner.
Sometimes sooner.
Yep. Sometimes sooner.
Number 9, decommissioning. I have this in here so you can see what it looks like.
Okay.
With the caveat of what Tom raised about if there's battery stuff outdoors, that's one thing. That certainly is something to be aware of. But and this comes on the heels of a lot of municipalities doing solar. Utilities got solar ordinances that talk about those have limited life, 25-year lifespans. We're going to remove the industry themselves. We're going to remove them after they're done, which Whether we believe them or not, that's a different story.
Yep.
So a lot of these standards, they just got lumped in from before we had that. That sounds like a great idea. But it's fair, I talked about the UTS plan. It's like, would we ask UTS to tear down their building once they're done with it? No, of course not.
Yep.
The buildings themselves, it's a big building. It can be reused.
Yep.
They take the stuff, they take the equipment out. It's basically a shell.
Yep.
And there's plenty of sites, over in Chambersburg, Carlisle, of big buildings like that get chopped up into smaller, usable stuff.
Yep.
So, I think that might maybe a reuse plan where it's designed to be reusable from there, the buildings type of thing. That can be more useful than these machines. But I wanted you to see what that is. I'm recommending that not move forward with the exception of any battery storage or outdoor equipment, like electronic equipment.
Agreed. Yep.
So, E, required plans and studies. Again, one, site plan. That's fairly standard. They have to come to the conditional use application with a detailed site plan on there. Two, traffic study. They don't have a ton of traffic, but it's a big site, so they can do something.
Yep.
I mean, the one up in Cumberland County, 16, 18 buildings times, 10 people per building. That's still a lot of people.
That's still fair enough.
Yeah, and the majority of the impacts gonna be construction.
Yeah.
Well, and you also,
Temporary.
yeah,
What
you
about
also make.
protecting the road?
Yeah, what about the road handling all
Because
that?
that goes right in, it's like right in both sides of that.
Yeah.
Township Road is in there.
But
It
one of the-
doesn't even go anywhere other than those places.
Well, at the very beginning, we talked about the site access can only come off of Artillery Collect Road. So the access would basically only come off of Old Harrisburg Road.
But we would address that in a
Which is the
traffic.
state
Because
road.
if that's the
In their
case,
plans.
So they'd be dealing with
They'll have to
PennDOT
address that.
on that
our
construction
township
site.
road would really be useless because it doesn't go anywhere
Just make them.
other than Smith Road. They would own all the properties on each side.
I mean, if they went to buy all those properties to consolidate into one,
Yeah.
they
Which-
probably
They
tear
build
down
new roads.
those
Yeah,
things
they-
there, and then
they-
they probably want to come, well, can you abandon this road and turn it back in the first place? But the idea is that they can't use that to access anything.
No, I know.
That's why we talk about the arterials and collectors, so that they're coming off the state roads,
We could probably get.
because then they're dealing with PennDOT on their road conditions.
Yeah, as long as they can't use it for construction purposes.
Right, yeah, no, that's.
Or they have to improve it and fix it after.
Right,
Yeah.
which you would have to put it in there.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
can add.
But that's part of what,
add your section there.
that's part of what,
Same deal. They can tear that up.
Oh,
that's,
Down to what water supply fees
yeah.
Mark, that's part of what you do in conditional use.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, what I'll add, go back to page 4, where it talks about access. I can add another phrase there, that construction access must be off of the state road.
There you go.
In which case, then it's
Then
not
there's
even a
no question they
Yeah.
can't start using it.
I mean, that's sort of what the natural gas boom up in the middle part of the state. That's really what hit there was the
Yeah.
accessing
All
those
them
things
roads.
off of the local roads that weren't, and they had to sort of retroactively post and bond them, and yeah, it became a big mess. So I know Strabane for their solar projects, they require the access to be off of the state road, so that PennDOT, it's PennDOT's problem. We're not going to give them anything on our roads. It's PennDOT's problem. If they tear up the state road, then they have to deal with the state to fix it. So, number 3, water supply report. Goes into great detail about what it could be. We have this one where not every ordinance is the same. We've seen some ordinances that put in, like, the water supply study provisions are pages long. And they have one specific, very detailed requirement for this use, and then every other use gets next to nothing. And we're like, well, from a commercial perspective, if you're requiring these standards for one use, why aren't you requiring them for everybody? Now, your Saldo has something interesting in there. It basically says they have to do one of these, they have to, I forget the exact terminology, but they basically consult with the township on what goes into it. So that makes sense. We're saying is for this use, for other uses that might be something different. For this use, we're being specific about what those criteria we want it to do there. So it's basically reference, it's tying in with your existing ordinance.
But this seems to contradict all the closed loop stuff. Because all this would apply to an open loop. Yeah.
But again, remember, we don't prohibit them from, it's just that if there's no public there.
All right. I gotta go back and read that. I'm not sure, but I agree.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier, there's already wells already.
But they can't use those wells. They have to, I guess my
They
point,
were
Mark.
test wells from back.
Yeah, and they wouldn't use them anyway. I mean, they might use them as a test, but my only point is, I believe we said, you can't do this. And then we said, but here's what we require of you if you do it. Well, we said you can't do it.
Yeah.
So I agree that we need something like this because I don't think we're going to get 100%. I don't think we're going to get one of these anyway. But I think if we get one, we're not going to get 100% closed loop. Those are extremely good. Okay. So.
Okay. Number 4, noise, vibration, and sound. There's 2 parts here: preliminary and an as-built study. And the things with these, as we've discovered, is there's a couple of years ago, original reports and complaints coming out of Virginia was it wasn't the sound, it was the vibrations.
Right.
And we discovered that's because a lot of ordinances.
Yeah, the harmonic.
Well, there's different types of decibels.
Correct.
dBA, dBc, dBz. dBA is what you hear. The vibrations, think like, car with the bass turned way up. That's what I think is the C. So what we're saying here is when they do the study, they're doing both. Doing all. They have to set baseline figures. It says baseline study shall include baseline levels, both AM and PM, and for all days of the week. So they got to do it. Now, if you want to be specific on the times, okay, that I won't argue. I left it very, very general for now. But the point of 4 is that they have to discover, set the baselines for the whole octave band and every day, so they can't pick and choose what they want. We talked about 15 in the middle of the night. They can't pick and choose what they want to comply with, what they want to meet.
Okay. We can look at that. There's also, I haven't looked at sound engineering for a while, but there's also a concept, harmonic frequencies that
Harmonics is a big deal.
they drive you out of your mind. You can barely hear it. I'm not talking about dog whistles.
No.
And that's an element of this.
If somebody has something
I'll look at
technically on that we can record, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, University of Syracuse did a lot of work on this. I'll look at their work. It's
That's outside my area of expertise. Put it that way. Let's see. Last thing, 5, thermal mitigation. Waste heat is something we've heard from these things.
It's just vented out through.
I don't know. If whether that's something that's more of an impact in areas where, ones that include substations and generation on site, I don't know. If it's something you want to include, that's the standards I found.
Okay, we should include it because there are times when they may vent the heat that isn't part of the water system. Because they can, a cool evening, for instance, and we would want to understand that and do it. So that can have significant thermal environmental effects. So that's why this exists. This is a good provision.
And then the last one, page 21, is the parking standards, which again would go in the parking section. So that's the, well, we'll time this relatively quick.
I think you gave up relatively quick a while ago.
So it's long. It's long. I know
Yeah.
you just got it today.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize. Figure it was something.
Well, thanks for doing it.
You did a great
Yeah.
job through.
Vitally
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't know how, if, you know, gonna have to trim it down if you want. I don't know what the
Not
best
really.
way-
I wouldn't start with that. Yeah,
And let me know.
Just farm it up.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
but
I think you did great.
in terms of next steps, I'm only asking so I know what I have to work on for next month. Do you want to keep fleshing this out till it's done, then go back, or do you want me to go back to the map?
And then go, yeah, we'll concentrate on this, and then once we get this, then we go back to the.
Go back to the overall sanitary plan. Yeah. This seems more urgent.
Right.
Everything's important, but this seems more urgent.
Like I said, all I want to know is what I have to work on. So at this point, I will. I was going to leave it as is, and figure we'll come back next month and if you have a chance to read it and start to whittle down or massage it as you might want, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay. Down to public comments.
I have a question. What is the present zoning of the overlay area?
Commercial.
Commercial industrial.
Commercial?
What's commercial industrial?
Yeah, commercial.
And how far is the first home from that area?
There's homes in that area.
Yeah.
It's right in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't separate out homes from commercial industrial, never have. So there's homes in
No,
that
I'm
area.
just asking because I've been reading a lot about this and those near neighbors will be most inconvenienced
Oh, yeah.
if one goes in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, if you live in the area, yeah, things are gonna change for you, yes.
I think Mark.
Mark,
I just wanted to make a point while I was sitting here for Scott, that over there where the noise is at, there used to actually be a skating rink, and there was loud music there every weekend. So
Yeah.
you might want to point that out to whoever's complaining, that
goes
they
back
should be
50
thankful
years
that there's
ago.
not music there every weekend.
Yeah, I
Like it
used to
used
skate there.
Yeah.
Well, probably where the people that you're talking about is where the owner of the skating rink lived.
It is.
Yeah, right there beside them.
Yeah, Hall.
Yeah.
Where he lived.
Ernie Hallball's place.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I had some time this week while I was cutting 5 acres of grass, which I do every week, sometimes twice. Gentlemen, you've got a heck of a task here. I hope you do it right. To put it in plain, simple terminology, I consider the AI like the British in 1776. It's coming. But we've got to do it right, that they can't come and do it in our township. We've got to have our dots dotted, our I's dotted, our T's crossed, our periods in the right place. I was fortunate enough to move here in '71. Some of you were classmates, some of you weren't born yet. My father came here August of '71. We moved 30 miles south. I see what that is now. I don't want it in my township. I do a lot of driving, not just local. that 81 corridor. You ever drive 81 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
I drive it all hours of the day.
43 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour zone.
That's
An ugly piece of highway, yes it is.
You're lucky when you're moving for it.
Yeah.
Dangerous
A
highway.
lot of times it's stop and go then.
And it's stop and go.
Yeah.
I don't want that on 15. It's bad enough we got what we got. Being in the fire department, I see. And I've seen it from 1971 to present.
I think we're pretty lucky compared to most of them. A lot of this probably will not be here, hopefully.
Well, we got a governor that really is pushing
Oh,
it,
yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah, no doubt about that.
but not in my township, please.
There's even, I don't know if you're following them up, but there's legislative actions that are working on
Trying to
to
stop it.
control these.
Yeah.
And we may go through all this and get shot out of the water anyhow. And if they come down with something saying, hey, here's what you're going to do,
And that's it.
we got to do what we can do.
Right.
But
State dictates.
the state dictates,
When you adopt zoning, you have to allow for all of it.
Money, and like you said earlier, money talks.
Yep.
right,
Well, it's just, and Tom has alluded to this about the amount of money.
there's a lot.
I read, for instance, Anthropic agreed on May 6th to use the full commute of XAI's Colossal One in Memphis, paying SpaceX roughly $1.25 billion per month through May of 2029. So now, we can go through all of this, but that right there is the bottom line.
You come by the whole township.
What's the one country singer that is down in Tennessee? They're coming around and trying to buy all this
Oh,
TVA authority.
yeah.
TVA,
John Rich.
John Rich, and they're fighting it and they're winning.
Well,
I don't think
We've
we'll
got-
win that one.
That's why
no.
it's,
I don't think he's coming up here though. I don't think he's coming here. So.
But I think everybody up here will do their best to do what we can do.
Sure.
And that's all we can
Because
do.
we all feel, I think we all feel the same way for the most part, so. At least
Just
me
as long as you
anyhow.
don't apply that to the grass department.
Yeah. I think we let
We
that
covered
go.
that, Tom. We covered that.
I just thought I'd bring that up humorously.
Yeah.
That I had, 5 acres to cut and
Yeah.
I do it twice a week and I had a lot of time to think.
Well, thank you for keeping your lawn neat.
Well, it's agriculture.
Thank you for keeping that neat.
And thanks Andy for this. Did a good job. Big help.
Is there any other public comments before?
There we go.
Yeah.
Upcoming meetings is, the next supervisors meeting is July 9th, and our planning commission is July 27th. So, not hearing anything from the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Jeff, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Cody, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.